Welcome to DAExMachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you all for joining us on another edition of DAExMachiNation. In the house tonight is me and Robbie Jed Rains, and we're going to be trying to keep you all entertained. Doc had a little mishap. He slipped and fell, hurt his back, so he's laying on a heating pad. I'm sure he's watching this if he's not, watching Tombstone for the 70th time. But he's with us in spirit, so we're hoping Doc gets to feeling better. And I think Steve had to work tonight. I haven't heard back from him, so hopefully both those guys will have Doc will be up and around, and they'll both be back with us soon. But we're going to have a pretty good show for you guys tonight. We're going to be talking about Bigfoot and camouflage, and I think this is going to be a pretty interesting conversation. Robbie, how the hell are you, brother?
I'm whooped, but I'm here.
You worked the Clemson game today, didn't you?
Yeah. The spring game, which is not really a game, it's more like a practice where Dabo screams at him for 3 hours with the 30 or 40,000 fans in the stands. But it was it was hot.
Charlie Evans says Amazon guy delivered your book to him today.
Thank you. Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. It was good. Jess Ryan says camouflage, is that French for dessert? Is that desert?
Desert.
Everything's a dessert when it's said in French. Oh.
Oh. But other than that, I'm good. I'm here. I'm raring to go.
Yeah.
You know, this is one of my favorite topics anyway. So.
Oh yeah. We last Wednesday, you guys were with us. We had Carter Bouchard on the show, and Carter has a little different perspective than we do, and that's all fine and good. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinions on this subject because it's a cryptid. Nobody knows for sure. But to kind of counteract that, we're going to talk about our opinion tonight. And there's a lot of channels that talk about the side of things that they refer to as the woo, and there's nothing wrong with that per se. But in almost 40 years in the woods, I've never had an encounter like that. And I've talked to people that have, and I'm not going to say that their encounters didn't happen. It's just never happened to me. And even in the times we've had some pretty crazy crap happen with Robbie and Doc and Noah and a whole crowd out in the woods, we've never had anything happen that was outside the realm of believability. Even when we start talking about how people had said they have disappeared, what some people refer to as cloaking, I think we're going to present a more scientific case for that tonight. And like I've said, what's already on the board?
Yeah. No, you got to read that one. That's one of his best.
That is pretty good.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I did not want to let that one get by.
That's pretty funny.
Oh,
Northwoods is scoring points early.
Just my personal opinion, DA. I think we need to give him 5 points just for that one.
That's definitely 5 points there. Once in a while, man, Northwoods really zings them. But he's always zinging them, but sometimes his are even epic. And that one's pretty good. First thing I want to talk about when we start discussing the adaptability, the camouflage patterns of Bigfoot type creatures. And this is something that the researchers on the Animal Planet have talked about. Doug Hychek, who founded Monster Quest, has talked about this. And I know researchers all across the U.S., including myself, who have personally seen hair samples that have a clear hair shaft. And it's not all of the hair. If you get a hair sample, mixed in among it will be these clear hair shafts. And the greatest example of that is the polar bear. Polar bears are not white. Polar bear fur actually has no color. The polar bear skin, if you shaved it, is black or a very dark gray. But the hair of a polar bear is designed to, one, hold in heat because they live in an Arctic environment, and two, it's designed to absorb the ambient light, and that's what it does. It looks white because it's in the sunlight, and that's just a natural adaptation. And then, and it's not just indicative of polar bears. There are lots of animals that have what they call a hollow medulla on certain hairs, and it exists across the board in all ungulate species. That's deer, elk, moose, caribou, reindeer. All ungulates have, especially in the wintertime, they have that hollow medulla. Which also partially explains why it's so damn hard to see them sometimes. Generally, when I grew up deer hunting, every deer I've ever shot in my life, I only saw it because it moved. And this is an animal we know exists and exists in abundance. But, you go out on deer season, and it's very hard to find one sometimes. Robbie, what do they call that?
They call that adaptive camouflage.
Yes, they do. And it exists across, numerous species. And I'm going to show you guys some pictures here. And we're going to talk about each of them. Some of these are people, and some of these I've only just glanced at, so I'm not even sure where the animals are in these. Some of these are humans, some of these are people. Humans learned how to camouflage. Animals, especially animals like Bigfoot, adapted to it. So we're talking about an animal with a natural ghillie suit on that does not want to be found. And we're gonna start off with this one. And this one's one of the more obvious ones. But if you were walking along in the woods and did not look directly at that, odds are very good you'd walk right by that. And of course, you can see him right here. But let's take a look at the next one. The first one hops right out you, but it takes you a second to notice the second one. These are, again, special forces, just taught to blend in. Now, these are going to get a little more difficult. You guys see him? Right here, pulling a bowstring. And that's just a guy in camouflage standing still. That's not any special adaptation. That's just a skill that he's learned to do. Another bow hunter, right up against the tree.
And if he didn't have that bow, he'd be gone.
This guy's pretty well blended in too. Maybe not as well as that last one. I'm going to go back to that last one. Let's go back, take a look at this one again.
I mean, if he did not have that bow in his hand, you can barely make out his shoes, but he just about completely blends into that tree.
And that's just a guy. This guy's a little more, his camo pattern is not quite as good. Okay. What do you see there?
The tigre.
That's a tiger. Now, if that thing was hunkered down, like preparing to pounce, you wouldn't see it.
But let me. DA and I might can see these things a little bit quicker, but that's because we have looked at so many of these. It's just like when you learn how to track and you learn what to look for. Your eye immediately goes. Now there are some that are a lot harder to find.
Oh, they're going to get harder, believe me.
Yeah.
Okay. Spot that one. I'm not even going to tell you what the animal is. Robbie hasn't seen these at all, folks, and I did that on purpose.
I don't even see that one.
Okay. Does it help if I say it's a mountain lion?
Nope, because I don't see anything that jumps out as mountain lion.
Right there.
Dang, now I see it now. That is amazingly camouflaged.
Yeah. Yeah, if you were walking under that tree, you would probably never know that cougar was up there.
You'd be
And
meow
that's
mix.
why, yeah, that's why they're ambush predators. They're very good at it. That's one of my favorite ones of the ones we found so far. Here you go.
I sees it.
Well, there's a deer right here, but that's not what we're looking for.
Yep. Down. Oh wait, it wasn't. That ain't where I was looking. It ain't where I thought it was.
Let me know when you give up. Roxanne says, I see a dog man. There's no dog man in this that I know of.
I was looking down at the bottom of the screen where that
Mm-hmm.
those two little
Where that rock is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was at first too, but it's not.
I thought it was a lynx or something at first. With those black tufts.
Yep. You give?
Yeah.
It's another mountain lion right there. You can just barely see its ear.
Dang, dude.
Again, this is a predator that does not want to be seen. Yeah, that's a young elk. See that one?
Yep, I see that one.
Yeah, he's a little easier to spot because you can see his face pretty well.
He wasn't at first.
Yeah, he blends in really well. But now you're looking for mountain lions. That's that same, we'll go just a couple frames later after that. That's that young elk. Let me know when you see him.
I see him now.
Yeah,
he's
right here.
Right there. Yep.
That's a young male mountain lion stalking that young elk.
He's like, steak.
Yeah. Here you go. I'm not even going to tell you what's in this picture.
Oh, I got to get closer. That's a small picture.
Let me scoot up.
All right. I don't see anything jumping out at me on this one.
It's right here. You've got a sniper right here. That is an Army Ranger.
I see the gun now.
Yeah, until you get in close,
yeah,
you really look at it.
I looked all over that area right there and didn't see anything.
That's an Army Ranger hidden with a sniper rifle.
That is very good use of the terrain.
Yeah, and we'll zoom back out. If you were bipping down a trail right over here, you'd be on the receiving end of a high velocity projectile before you even knew he was there. And if he's suppressed, you'd probably never know the bullet that hit you. And that's a guy who was taught to do this. Not born to it, not adapted to it naturally. This is a man who was taught to do this. That's the same picture. Three deer just standing there, very calm. I wish I could have found that same image without the red circles, but that was the only one I found.
That one in the middle would definitely blend in really good. I think they all three would, but the one in the middle.
I was thinking that was three young deer watching me drop my sandwich out of the deer stand.
Probably.
Like, what's he doing now?
All right.
This is a pretty good one too.
Is it towards the back in the middle of like 3 or 4 trees?
Kind of.
Because I see
Tell
something.
you what, I'll zoom in and it'll pop out once I start zooming in.
Okay, I was a wolf. I didn't see that. I was looking back towards the back of the frame.
Hold on, I need to go to Stream Elements and turn off the guest. It's still chatbot timers. Okay, we should stop seeing that now. Charlie Evans says, is a polar bear still white when the sun goes down? Again, polar bear's fur actually has no color.
Yeah, they're not white. They appear white because of their environment. I love those. That is, to me, that's one of the best examples of adaptive camouflage. And
isn't he beautiful?
If that sun's gonna close his eyes, you'd never see him.
And no wonder so few people see owls in the woods, because they are masters of camouflage.
A giraffe.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can do a double take before you see a 14-foot giraffe in the woods, yeah, just know that natural camouflage adaptation works. There we go. There's a good one.
Yep, I see him. I didn't at first, but I did. I thought.
Right there.
Yep.
This one's a little harder.
Foreground or background?
Kind of mid-ground. Kind of midway.
Yeah, I was wrong on both counts then.
Right here.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I see
There's
that.
your nope rope. Doc's nope rope. And that one's not a very good job of them camouflaging. When they're stretched out and laying among the leaves, this one I would have seen pretty easily, because I've got my brain kind of conditioned to watch for these damn things, because we've got copperheads all over the place in Missouri. We even get them in town. But this one's a little harder. In fact, I don't even know where it is in this one. This is one of those I didn't study it. So I'm not even sure. I know there is one in this picture. I just have not found it yet.
I thought I had it, but I don't think that's it. Is it? Do we know what kind of snake it is? Because
Copperhead.
Another copperhead.
Another copperhead.
Because what I thought I saw at first looked like a diamondback rattlesnake. But that's why I was like, I'm not sure.
I don't even know where this one is.
A diamondback would blend in really well there too.
Yeah, it would. And that's another great adaptation of camouflage. Hey, Shadow Gypsy, thank you for becoming a member.
Thank you. Dude, I don't see it.
I can't. I specifically went to a site that had pictures of well hidden pictures of copperheads. And
I found it. I found it.
Where'd you find it?
Come down. No. Go back where you were. To that log. Go over the other way. Your other way. There. Keep going. Stop. Right there. Stop. Now go down. Keep going. Stop. Right there where you're.
Oh, I see him. You can see his head.
Yep.
That little sucker is. You'd get bit.
Yeah.
There's his head. He's curled up in these leaves. I can see kind of his pattern now. But there, That's that viper head. You got a good eye, dude. I would have walked on that damn thing probably, which is why I usually walk with a walking stick in the woods.
That's why I was asking what kind, because if you look, pull it back out a little bit. If you look like right towards the
now I can plainly see it. I mean, I can see the pattern of the scales, but
go back up to that log where I had you start again.
Over here.
Yeah. Now keep going to the that way to the left.
Okay.
I stop right there and go up a little ways. Now come back, go back towards where the other snake that we actually found was, just a little bit more right past that leaf, and look in there, that area. That looks like a diamondback pattern.
It does kind of. You know, it's entirely possible it was in the image and we just didn't see it. They didn't know. The photographer didn't even know about it.
I mean, I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't, but
that copperhead is definitely right there. There you go. There's a good one for you.
All right, see him straight in the middle.
Yep. Right there. That's another one I might have walked on if I wasn't paying attention.
Snakes are some of the best ambush predators there are. That's another one. If there weren't little bitty details that just stand out, that looks so much like the middle of that tree is not even funny.
Yep.
That's what it doesn't look like. The outside of the tree, it looks like the inside of that tree.
Yeah, it sure does.
That's just amazing to me.
That's a gecko. I think it's called a carpet gecko. You see it?
Yep.
Look at the little eyeball right there.
I think that's one of the ones I sent you, though, isn't it?
I think so. Anyway, that's all of the pictures I got, but I just wanted to get some great examples of natural camouflage. The article I read also said that there are other animals besides deer and polar bears. Wolves, llamas, and I think it was mink also have those clear hair tips mixed in among their fur.
I think the Arctic fox does too, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. It's wild how many animals have that adaptation. But when you start talking about clear hair shafts and associated with Bigfoot, you get shut down. People are, no, that can't happen. Yes, it can, and it's happened over and over again in nature. We don't necessarily need to go to science fiction to explain the behaviors of some of these creatures.
Same thing when you start talking about backtracking. Oh, they don't do that.
But it's a proven fact among numerous species. Hell, tigers do it.
It kills me that it's easier for people to think that they do something that is not established anywhere else in nature versus something that is established by multiple other species in nature that do. Why is if they're smart, they can see rabbits do it. They can see bears do it. They could learn.
Don Donaldson said, like the one with the 30 or so sheep in it. I couldn't find that video again. I've been looking everywhere for that video. It's a bunch of doll sheep. And even when you're looking at it when it stopped, you see, just a couple if you're paying attention. But as soon as that gunshot goes off, there's like 30 of them suddenly in the image.
If you remember, we stopped that video and we asked everybody in the chat the last time we showed it. We said, count how many sheep you see in that video. And I think we were getting anywhere between 4 and 8 of what people count. But we never got any higher, I don't think, than 8.
I think 7 was the highest, I believe.
Maybe one person one or two people that I missed maybe said 11. But nobody got anywhere close. And as soon as that shot cracks off, all 15 to 20 of them things stand up. Everybody in the chat was like, oh my God, I didn't know there was that many in there. That's the point.
I wish I could find that video again. I may have a copy of it saved on my computer, but I couldn't find it. I mean, that was like 110 episodes ago that we showed that.
Yeah, and I never saved it. I just got it, sent it straight to you. And
yeah, I need to find that video and get it. Make sure I save a copy of it, because that, to me, that's one of the single greatest pieces of argument for adaptive camouflage. So we've just looked at literally dozens of examples of natural camouflage existing in the animal kingdom. But so why is it so hard to think that a Bigfoot that does not want to be found could not be having these same characteristics? Where it's wearing a natural ghillie suit. Numerous researchers, including, like I said, Doug Hychek and some of the guys from Animal Planet, have collected hair samples that had those clear hair shafts. They collected hairs up near Snell Grove Lake in Canada that had clear hair shafts. Some of the researchers down in Florida have collected skunk ape hair and that had clear hair shafts. So, you know, the next generation of ghillie suits are being made with fiber optic strands woven in among the rest of the ghillie suit, because they pick up and redirect the color of the light around it. One of the greatest examples of this, and why I think that we're just really looking at something that's very good at camouflage, is I took it from a guy I met down by Miami, Oklahoma. It's not in Miami, but a little ways out. He lives on one of the reservations. I'm not going to say which one, because I don't want anybody, trying to go find him or harass the guy, because he didn't want me to use his name. But he told me that he went out to fish on one of his favorite streams to fish on, and he rounded a corner. Now, Robbie's heard me tell this story about a dozen times. He rounded a corner, and there was a Sasquatch just standing there. It was in the middle of the trail. And it was much like my grizzly bear story, where I looked at it and it looked at me, and we were both like, oh, crap, and went our separate ways. He said when it realized he could see it, it put its hand up like this over its eyes and took 2 steps back into the trees and disappeared. I said, did it like cloak or go through a portal? He said, no, I could hear it walking off. But once it got out of the direct sunlight, I couldn't see it anymore. He said it was still there. I knew it was there. I just couldn't see it. Once it got in among the different colors of the foliage and everything, it just disappeared.
Just like the Freeman footage.
Just like the Freeman footage. I was getting ready to bring that up. The Paul Freeman footage also has one of the best examples of adaptive camouflage in a Bigfoot that I've ever seen. The night we had MK Davis on, we talked about this at length. Paul Freeman is filming a large, what appears to be male Sasquatch, completely black, walking across a path, or walking across a section into the trees. And he's filming it. He's like, oh my God, there it is, there it is. And then it disappears. It stops and just vanishes. So he moves around and starts approaching closer. And as soon as this thing realizes, hey, he's still coming, it steps away from the tree and starts walking again. But as soon as it starts moving, you can see it. But when it stopped and went dead still in front of that tree, it just disappeared.
Yep. I showed that video to somebody 2 days, or Thursday or Friday. I can't remember which day. I said, because we got it, because he had watched a couple videos the night before, and it was like talking about the portal issue and all this kind of stuff. And he was like, he said, I just don't understand this stuff. And I said, watch this video and then you tell me. And I pulled up the Freeman footage, let him watch it. And he was like, he said, that thing it's almost like it vanished. He said, I kind of see where people might think that that's what happened. He said, but if you just keep watching the video, you see it move as soon as he keeps moving towards it. I'm like, there you go.
Let me see. Hold on just a second. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. I can't do the audio, but I'm going to make a quick disclaimer real quick so I don't get a copyright strike. But I'm going to put this up and make a quick disclaimer so everything is all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Fair use notice. Well, this site contains images and excerpts which I have not been pre-authorized. This material is made available for the purposes of analysis and critique, as well as to advance the understanding of political, media, and cultural issues. Well, Bigfoot, I guess, is a cultural issue. The fair use of such material is provided under U.S. copyright law. So what we're about to show you and the images we have shown you thus far are protected under fair use. So let me share this. And we are going to watch a couple seconds of the Paul Freeman footage. And again, this this footage belongs to Paul Freeman. We're using it under fair use. Here we go. And I will try to sort of freeze frame it. Okay, watch this thing. He's filming it. Boom. It disappears. He moves forward. And then it starts moving again. Did you see it? Let's go back to look at that. Watch that area right here. It is just standing still. Okay, I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to slow this down. Let's playback speed. Let's go to 0.25 speed. Okay. Now, watch toward the center of the screen. We are going much slower here. Watch right here. There's nothing there that you can see with the naked eye. And when he starts to get closer, it realizes he's still coming, and now it's moving. Do you see it move? Now it's moving completely, and you can completely see it again. But that is a great example of that thing just absolutely going to a dead stop and vanishing.
But it was still there.
Yeah, it was still there the whole time. It didn't go through a portal. It didn't teleport. It didn't have Scotty beam it up. It didn't adjust the Klingon cloaking device on its utility belt. It stopped moving and disappeared right before your eyes.
And I lost track on lost count how many times we've said this. We're not saying that that cloaking or going into portals or whatever. We're not saying that is impossible. What we're saying is everything that we've seen, like that video we just showed, everything that we've seen out in the woods, because he and I have been in the woods together multiple times. Nothing that we've ever seen or experienced has been anything other than what a live animal would do.
Yeah, and even if it was something we couldn't explain at the time, we look for logical explanations for it.
Yeah, it's like we've talked about. I'm still a police officer. DA was a police officer. We always look to where we follow what the evidence shows us, and you can't start an investigation at point A and then your next stop is point Z. You have to visit all points in between before you can make your judgment.
Robbie, I got a little scenario for you.
All right.
Okay, you're a man tracker. You track people for your department. Okay, you get called to a crime scene. Guy, let's just say, for example, traffic stop near the edge of the woods. To give you the details, traffic stop near the edge of the woods. Guy's got a warrant. When the guy realizes he's about to be arrested, he shoves the cop down, runs off into the woods. They call for you to come track the guy. Okay. You find the track. You find what you refer to as spoor and fresh meat. You're following the track. You get to a clearing, and the tracks just stop in the middle of the clearing. What do you think would happen if you said, "Yep, portal"?
You mean before or after everybody stopped laughing and got up off the ground?
I don't think you'd be called in to track one again.
No. My chief would probably call and reserve
Well,
a
let's
room
just
for me at Marshall Pickens.
let's say you follow these tracks, these tracks right there in the fresh soil, into the middle of this field, and they stop abruptly 20 yards from any direction of the wood line where you would see tracks. What do? What's the first thing you do?
First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start getting down closer to where the tracks are, and I'm going to start looking at where the disbursement is. Is it kicking out of the front of the track, or is it kicking out of the back of the track? Because if it's kicking out of the front of the track, that means something different than if the disbursement's kicking out of the back of the track. You know the answer to this because I've explained it to you. A lot of people don't understand this.
Especially if they're not trained how to do it.
I didn't before I went to the class, and I'll sit there and tell you, and I do not know everything there is to know about tracking. Preface what I'm about to say by saying that I am not an expert. I'm pretty good, but the DA knows that I'm not going to toot my own horn.
I will say this for absolute certain. Rob, I used to think I was a pretty good tracker. I've tracked a lot of deer over the years. Robbie blew my mind in about 15 minutes. I mean, like, whoa. I thought I was good. No.
So if I'm walking in a normal heel to toe fashion, and my heel hits the ground, and then the toes come up, if I'm walking forward, disbursement is all the stuff off the dirt and rocks and sticks and everything else that your foot hits. When you're walking forward and you're pulling your foot forward, which way is that disbursement going to go? It's going to flow out the front of the track. So if the disbursement is out the front of the track, which way are they walking? They're walking forwards. But if you get down and look at the track and you see kick out and disbursement and everything going backwards, that's somebody the track has been laid forward, and then they go backtrack to it. Trisha said it earlier. If I'm walking backwards and I'm putting my primary point of impact is my toes versus my heel, the disbursement is going to go back towards the back of the track. But if you don't know that, and that's not something that you learn, because think about it. I'm talking about getting down and looking at which direction dirt is coming out of the track. That's not something that a lot of people are going to sit there and know about, number one, or number two, actually get down and do. Because that gets into, there's macro tracking and there's micro tracking. Micro tracking is that's getting down and looking and see which direction the dirt is coming out of the track, the disbursement, socketing, all that kind of, tracker talk, basically. That's micro tracking. Macro tracking is, I see a track over there 10 yards away. I see the next track 6 feet further than that one. I see that, there's a broken branch up there in the direction they were going. That's macro. Micro is getting down, looking at each individual track, looking for dermal ridges, looking for disbursement, looking for pressure release points, looking for stride and straddle and all that kind of stuff. It's a whole process.
Harold Goodall earlier asked if there was supposed to be a second young Bigfoot in the Paul Freeman footage. I think I remember MK saying something about the possibility of being a second one that was a little better hidden. We need to get MK back on the show and just do a full breakdown on the Paul Freeman footage.
Yeah, we talked about that the other night, about getting him back on.
Yeah, I need to reach out to him. He was having some health issues there for a bit, and I didn't want to bother him, but I think I'll reach out to him. Speaking of having people back on the show, guess who is going to be joining us this Wednesday night?
Are you asking me or asking them? Because I know
a little bit of everybody. Anybody got any guesses who we're going to have as a guest with us this Wednesday night? Pete says, I don't think I want to try and shave a polar bear. Yeah, probably wouldn't. No, I haven't heard anything back from Fred. But Josh Nanocchio is going to be back on with us from What Lurks Beneath. He'll be back with us this Wednesday night. Roxanne says, I think in the Freeman film he showed small tracks of a little Bigfoot. I think I remember him talking about that. So yeah, make sure you're with us this Wednesday night when Josh is back on the show. We're going to be talking about some interesting stuff. Neil says he's feeling better now, DA. Good. Okay, I was worried about him there for a bit. Yeah, I'm going to reach out to him and see if we can get him back on the show.
And we've talked about Steve said I need to get back in touch with Jesus and see if he's finished with the project he was working on, because he was going to be on here a couple months ago, I think, wasn't it, DA? But he had something going on that he was working with.
I broke my rule and had some soda tonight. Little RC cola. If I'm going to break the rule, I'm going to have me some RC.
Nothing wrong with an ROC Coca-Cola.
That's right. Irene says, DA, you're going to have a show on Sunday. Probably not until we're back at the other place. The internet over here is not as stable as I like. And while we're over here, and it's Noah streams on Sundays too, so that's kind of a competition because we are literally 10 feet apart. So if Noah's streaming, you're going to hear him on mine. So I'm probably not going to do a Sunday night Redneck Reading Association until I'm back in my area where I can control the volume level. Because like we aptly demonstrated on Wednesday night, people were like, "What's that noise? Is somebody snoring?" And it was Harley, who was laying right over here next to me, just sawing logs. And so, like, we pick up a lot of background noise in this house. I don't have the room that I once had to try to keep the sound level down. But I probably won't do Redneck Reading until we're back over at the other house, which is looking like it's probably going to be soon. We've been going over and checking their progress, and they've made a lot of progress on that other house. I'm hoping they'll have it done in a week or two. But anyway, that takes us back to the subject at hand. Natural adaptive camouflage explains the solution so much better without resulting to anything supernatural or metaphysical. We generally, when it comes to mysterious things, we need to look no farther than the animal community, the animal kingdom, to find examples of this. The thing that most really kind of concerns me about this is the people that talk portals and things like that. About 30% of the reports I've taken over the years were violent or at least aggressive. It's about 70% of people just saw it crossing the road, or they saw one in the woods while they were fishing or something like that. But about 30% of those reports are either violent or aggressive. So looking back at all the Native American lore, looking at like the abduction cases like Albert Ostman, credible stories of Bigfoot attacks, Ape Canyon, if even, let's say 10% of Bigfoot were violent, and that's a pretty solid number, but if only 10% were even remotely violent and would attack people, if they could go through portals, they would have destroyed us years ago. There would be absolutely nothing we could do to stop them.
It's the same logic we use with when you talk about, if you take every story and every sighting from all over the world, from the beginning of time we started keeping these, if everybody wants to say it's a hoax, fine and dandy, but if just one of those people is telling the truth, that makes it true.
Chris Burkhart says, okay, I'm an old scout, but I've been out of the Army 10 years. I bet your ass I can hide less than 5 meters from you unless I have gas, open a beer, or light a cigar. Dude, I've got an old buddy I went to high school with who became an Army Ranger. After we both got out of the Army, we went out in the woods. We were playing paintball with some friends, and I was giving Mike crap. I was just ragging him because I know Rangers are pretty freaking hardcore. Mike was an airborne Ranger. And I know those guys are pretty hardcore, but we were just, giving each other crap. And I'm like, come on, you Rangers aren't that bad. I'll find you out here. And he goes, oh, yeah? Prove it. And I turned around, and that son of a gun was gone. And I don't know where the hell he went. He said I nearly stepped on him a couple of times, but I literally had my back turned to him, and when I turned around, he was gone, and I couldn't find him. So, yeah, you get somebody that's trained and knows how to do it, you're not going to find him. And that's not an animal that was born to it. That is a very well-trained human who's very good at that skill. Now, imagine you were born into that, and you've got generations of your ancestors improving on better ways and you've got that natural adaptation with those clear hair shafts. If you don't want to be found, you ain't going to be found.
With a natural born ghillie suit.
Right. Say Camo Dad gets it, says it'd be a bloodbath for sure if they could jump through portals. And I'm not saying portals don't exist. We know CERN opened one, but nowhere else in the animal community does that exist. You know, even if Bigfoot is a higher primate or even a remnant population of Neanderthal, we can't open portals. And, you know, we've got the most highly developed brain of just about anything on the planet next to like dolphins and killer whales. But you know, a higher primate can't do that. Gorillas don't do it. If they could, we'd never keep one in a zoo.
That's it. The killer whales are opening the portals for Bigfoot.
That's right. Killer whales are doing it.
We figured it out.
Dash 25, 5257 says there's hunters that use ghillie suits and kill deer with a knife. Yeah. Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. You get a guy who's well trained in camouflage or in stealth and give that sucker a ghillie suit. I guarantee you right now, we can take pretty much everybody in the audience. We've got, what do we got? 155 people watching. If all 155 of us, 157, you count me and Robbie, if all of us gathered out in the Mark Twain National Forest right now, and we took one guy who was Special Forces trained and gave him a ghillie suit, we could walk hand to hand across the entire expanse of the woods and probably never find him.
Unless somebody unluckily just stepped
on him. Yeah. So it is not anywhere outside the realm of possibility that these things are just that good at vanishing in the woods. I read Roxanne's thing about the April Fool's joke. I didn't see that one.
No, I didn't see that one either. The only April Fool's joke I saw was the one that ESPN tried to pull about College Game Day. Did you read that?
Some of those are pretty good, and some of them are pretty obvious.
Yeah. Well, I was about a paragraph and a half into it before I said, "This has got to be an April Fool's joke." And sure enough, at the very end, said it. It basically said that they were going to go back to a studio show, and it was just going to be Pat McAfee and Stephen A. Smith, and they were going to loan Kirk Herbstreit and the rest of them out to CBS. And I was just like, "Yeah, this is fake."
But you know, when it comes to research in this field, we have a hard enough time getting the general scientific community to accept, you know, that these creatures even exist. Much less when you start throwing in mind speak and portals and teleportation and Nephilim and all of that. And we don't even really need to get to that extreme to explain the existence of these things. I mean, what was it? They didn't even really know mountain girls existed until like 1906. The Billy Ape, they found that in 99. Was it later than that?
It was like in, I want to say the 30s or the 50s. Let me look that up because.
I mean, if you would have went back, say, to 1850 and talked about a killer chimp that was eating lions, they'd have laughed at you. Like, oh, no, that couldn't possibly exist. Yet we know it does. The Billy Ape. They call them lion killers. They're the killer ape. They'll make war on other clans of chimps. I mean, they're vicious. So if, right there in the Congo region was a 6-foot upright chimp that uses spears and hunts lions, if we didn't know about that until within the last 25 years, what else is out there we don't know about, especially if it doesn't want to be found?
Okay, you're right. It's 1902, but I was thinking it was later than that. But there was something that was in the 50s, but still 1902 is when the mountain gorillas were discovered. But they had been,
they found lots of big things. Hell, they just found a species of whale like 10 years ago off Australia they'd never seen before. So we're always finding stuff, and sometimes we find big stuff.
Yep. But like, I can't understand why a lot of people's first instinct, if you follow through all of where the evidence goes and the investigation, all that stuff, and then that's where you come out at, fine. But you just can't get, like you said, follow some trails or some tracks, and then you don't see anymore, and say, "Oh, they must have called Captain Kurt."
Yeah. If you've eliminated everything else and that's all you've got left, okay, maybe. I'll give you some credibility on that. If you've eliminated everything else, if you're looking at a Bigfoot walking through a clearing and he gets to the middle and just disappears like smoke, okay, that's a little different. But the stories I hear from people, I'd have never heard one like that. Now, the Paul Freeman would, he was walking through the middle of a clearing and then stopped by a tree and disappeared like smoke. That to me is far more believable than, he turned to mist or he walked through a portal, or, there's got to be a logical explanation for these behaviors. Just because we can't explain it now doesn't mean there's not a logical explanation for it. I mean, look at some of the explanations that primitive people had. One I like to throw out is the Aurora Borealis. The Vikings used to believe that the Aurora Borealis was the light of the Bifrost Bridge reflecting off the armor of the Valkyries, and which is a cool story, but we know that's not it. But that was the best they could do to explain it back then, and it is a very supernatural explanation. But we know now that it's electromagnetic energy, reacting with the upper atmosphere of the Earth. So we know that now. We didn't know that, 300-400 years ago. Just because there is not a logical explanation that you can find now does not mean that it's something supernatural. What it does mean is we can't explain it at the moment. How often have you scratched your head at the explanation? Like, say, for example, Robbie, you're working on a truck, okay, and it won't start, and you've eliminated everything that you can think of. You've checked the starter, you've checked the battery, you've checked the solenoid, you've checked spark plugs, you've checked you've checked literally everything you can think of, and it still won't start. It's not getting fire. At what point do you say it's aliens and portals?
Me, I would probably never say something like that, but
that's my point, though. Just because you can't find doesn't mean it's a demon possessed truck. Neil Decker's got a good question. In fact, I'm going to throw this one at you, Robbie, and then I'll jump in when you're done. He says, "What do you think about the increase in aggression with Sasquatch lately? Lots of reports of nasty encounters. Something has to be going on with them."
I think we've, and Neil, this is not. I'm not. I think we've answered this question a couple times before, and I think it's the best answer we can come up with is you start looking at what happened during the Black Plague of the 21st century, when everybody was indoors for 2.5 to 3 years. These things just pushed back into areas that we had pushed them out of. And we don't have people like Teddy Roosevelt and Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett and people like that anymore. We don't. I'm sorry. There are some like that, but we're not those people anymore. We're not those frontiersmen and those pioneers anymore, and we don't have anybody to go in and push these things back like we did back in the day. And you've seen plenty of these shows on TV. It doesn't take nature long to take back over an area when we're not there effing it up, so to speak. And I think that they've moved back into these areas and they don't want to come back out, or they don't want to get pushed back out. That's just plain and simple. And it's like, the old "I've had all I can stands and I can't stands no more" Popeye thing.
And I think it's that, and I think part of it is we're now building more and more houses in habitats where we haven't had houses before.
Yeah.
And if you push into something's territory, it's going to push back.
Yeah.
Robert D says forest fires. Yeah, as forest fires and other things like that destroy habitat, they're going to come into areas to find food. I mean, they're not going to sit up in the hills and starve to death and look down at a small town and go, I could eat my fill down there, but I don't want to go in there and be seen. They can hit trash cans like bears do. They can raid gardens. There's all kinds of ways they can get food without attacking people. And then, of course, there's the part of the population that probably doesn't get reported when they go missing. The homeless.
Yeah.
Homeless populations, if they disappear, nobody bats an eye.
Yeah, because you're only missing if you got somebody to report you missing. I mean to sound callous with that, but if there's nobody to report you missing, and you're already homeless, and you don't have a place to be missing from, it's kind of hard to get reported missing.
Well, it was like that story I heard from that game and fish guy from Arkansas about elderly people just disappearing that lived out in the middle of nowhere.
And we talked about that one night when you said you were asking about what's kind of some of the scariest cryptids. And to me, that is really scary, living out there by yourself, being elderly, and these things just preying on elderly people.
And a lot of law enforcement, especially small departments without the resources to really investigate. And I'm not saying anything bad about small departments. I'm saying they simply don't have the manpower to put 5 guys on a missing persons case. They were probably going to look for a logical explanation and go with it. Early stage dementia, they wandered off. We'll see if we can find them, but after a couple of days, they're just going to give up and go on. If an elderly person vanishes without a trace and they lived alone, that's probably going to be the first explanation that makes sense.
Well, they had early onset dementia and they wandered off, and but that's something we talked about too. That. Why are some of these cases you see, they'll look, and a lot of times in national parks and these seniors that wander off, you'll see sometimes weeks and weeks and weeks of searching, and sometimes a couple of days, and it's like, oh, they're gone.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Why do sometimes they go weeks or months or whatever, and then sometimes it's a couple of days, and that's, and I know sometimes terrain. And plays into that. Oh, well, they lived in an area where there's a lot of real deep lakes. Like somebody wandered off and fell into that area of Table Rock Lake where we were at Combs Ferry. Ain't a lot of divers going to be able to dive 200 and something feet,
right,
to look for their body. I get that, but there's a little bit more to it than just, okay, well, it's rough terrain, we'll never find them.
Right. Yeah, and that is a great question, Robbie. Why do some missing persons get basically, hundreds of volunteers that work for weeks and weeks trying to find them, and then others it's like 48 hours and like we couldn't find them.
Yeah, sorry.
I can't explain that one. That's a head scratcher. Camo Dad, yeah, doors wide open, someone just going without a trace. There was a guy down in Arkansas, and this was down southern Arkansas. It was near Falk, but it wasn't right there in it. the door to his truck was open. There were still groceries in the seat, and he was just gone. Old boy went to get out of his truck and take his groceries in the house, and something got him.
And he became groceries.
Yeah, he became groceries.
But, that's why you start looking into stuff like this. And
43 Big Vic's got a good point too. Social media can also be a catalyst. Oh boy, dogmen spotted near Wolf Lake and a couple of idiots that think yelling at everyone is going to convince a predator to stop attacking. Well, yeah, you post get a post on Facebook. Bigfoot seen at Table Rock Lake. Guys like me and Robbie are going to go down there and look.
Yep. Even if the 24-hour service vehicle is there.
Tricia says that happened to a lady near KC. Just went missing with a car door open? Really? If you've got a link to that, to the story, please send it to me. Because I know a couple guys who are law enforcement in that area. I might be able to maybe get a little more info, or at least get them to dig in for me. Portal's got him.
Yeah. The old Portal reached out and grabbed him.
Land Shark. Hey, thanks for the super chat, Josh. Oh, he's got a question. He said, you mentioned people moving and building more rural. Wonder what statistics of job site vandalism could contribute to Bigfoot give them the hint. That's a good point. I mean, check with construction companies to see if they've been working some of these remote sites and had their stuff trashed or flipped over. In fact, when Jerry Crew, they coined the phrase Bigfoot, they were having like fuel canisters, like 55-gallon drums of fuel thrown down the side of the mountain, and heavy equipment flipped over.
Yep. Had a couple of excavators that come in the next morning, and threads being ripped off of them, and a couple of smaller dozers were flipped over. Like he said, 55-gallon drums of fuel, which ain't light, picked up and tossed down and they ruled out that somebody turned them things over and rolled it, because think about how heavy they are. If you turn one of those things over and rolled it down the hill, what's it going to leave? Tracks.
Yeah. Well, look at
tracks except where it hit the ground down to the bottom of the hill.
Let's math some math in here. Let's assume they were filled with water, not diesel fuel. Okay, if you had a 55-gallon drum full of water, well, let me do the math in here. Let me grab my calculator. Okay, so you got 55-gallon drums times 7.5 pounds per gallon. That's 412.5 pounds of just the water. Add in probably another 30 pounds for the canister. So you're looking close to 450 pounds that left no tracks on the ground of somebody rolling it. I don't know about you. I was a pretty stout kid in my day, but I'm not picking up and chucking a 450-pound barrel. I ain't freaking Donkey Kong.
Brian Shaw ain't picking up a 455-pound barrel.
Yeah, little Hulk ain't doing it. I know I ain't.
No, Brian Shaw, not our Brian.
Okay, yeah.
World strongest man.
You said Brian, I immediately thought of him.
He's strong, but I don't think he's strongest man in the world strong yet. He may get there, but
let's see. Tricia says KC missing and unsolved covered it. I believe it happened quite a few years ago. I'll dig into it. I'll see if I can find it. But the thing is somebody goes missing in one of these small municipalities or goes missing in a small county, rural. It's not going to make it's not going to make headline news. I mean, let's say Shannon County, Missouri. Biggest town in Shannon County, Missouri is Eminence. And Eminence has got a population of, I think, about 1,200. And it's not exactly a metropolis, if you get my meaning. Eminence is not a big town. So if somebody that lived out in the woods behind Eminence disappeared, it might go unnoticed for months.
Mm-hmm.
Camo Dad says, glad Bigfoot doesn't smoke if they're pitching gas cans.
No joke.
Tricia, yeah, if you can find out any more information on that, please send that to me. Neil Decker says that's the alpha male Bigfoot doing that with the trees upside down. That's been found here in the Mark Twain here in Missouri. Trees uprooted and jammed back down in the ground. Prince Albert Island up off Alaska, they found them there. And some people have tried to claim, well, that was just loggers. We're talking places where loggers have not logged that they're finding these things. They were found right on the shore of Port Chatham. I've seen pictures of them from Port Chatham, just right there, stuck like in the rocky soil just up above where the town was. Those are territorial markers. Kevin Bogue says, I'd like to see a study of well diggers, how many voids they find leading to the cave systems. Probably quite a few. Someone earlier mentioned the Amish. I have heard that the Amish have a lot of stories about Bigfoot. The problem is they generally don't open up to outsiders. I have yet to find an inroad. I know some guys that live out. We got quite a few Amish here in Missouri in different places, and I know some folks that have a farm like right up near Amish land. So I'm going to talk to them and see if they've ever heard anything. But making an inroad to try to get the Amish to open up to you, that's kind of tough. But I hear they do have stories. Lieutenant Jenkins, I think a portal potty might be to blame.
Portal potty. Nice LT.
That's funny. Neil Decker says, I found one in my state park, one of those uprooted trees, I'm assuming. Dude, yeah. And I do believe they are a territorial warning.
Kind of like a deer hide in a fish head in a tree.
Yeah. Well, funny you bring that up. It was after we passed those, they started getting aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Up until that point, they just seemed curious, wanting to know what the hell we were doing there. But after that point, we started hearing more stuff in the woods. They were getting closer. LT was there. It was when we got him and Steve out of there. The less of us there were on the shore, the closer they got to us. Probably a good thing you didn't let me stay behind. Might have got it.
It wasn't up for debate.
Well, that whole thing was my harebrained idea. If anybody was staying alone, it was going to be me. Pine Knot Yoder says there are a couple of Dogman and Bigfoot experiences with Pennsylvania Amish. Yeah, I wish I had contacts among the Amish. I really do. I bet we would hear some interesting stories because there's a whole Amish community out near Fordland, Missouri, which is not far from here. And you can drive anywhere near Fordland, you'll see buggies all over the place.
Drive foot every time we come over.
But they're a pretty quiet community. They don't generally open up. Camo Dad says Amish might see Bigfoot as demons. That's entirely possible. Or they might just accept them as being there like the Native Americans. They say, oh, it's something we've got to look out for. 443 Big Vic says Jeff Nadolny claims to have stories from the Amish. I haven't listened to his channel in a while. Michael Scott says, DA, how big and fresh was that fish warning y'all came up on? The head was probably, it would look like it had been ripped off the fish behind the gills. It wasn't torn off at the gills. It was actually just like raggedly torn behind the gills. And it was probably yay big, but I don't know that it was that fresh. It looked like that had probably been there a little bit because it had already started to dry out. It wasn't still slimy. So I think that it had been there a little bit. But I think up until the point we passed those territorial markers, I think at that point, they're like, all right, you guys have gone far enough.
Now, the deer hide was pretty fresh.
Mm-hmm. The deer hide, the blood was still red on that. ED Testaments. There's a lot of Amish and Mennonites around Dallas County. Yeah, there's out in Dallas County, over on Old 54 Highway heading toward Bennett Springs. There's a Mennonite church over there. They're the only one I think I've ever seen. Roxanne says DA is Fordland, anywhere close to Mount. No, opposite directions. Fordland is kind of southwest of Springfield. Mount Vernon is southwest of Springfield, and Fordland is out kind of northeast, kind of out 60 Highway, like if you're going to trying to think, like if you're heading toward West Plains. It's almost due east of us. Isabel says Mennonites I thought were a little insular. Yeah, they don't generally talk to outsiders, especially about their private affairs. The Fordland's on the opposite side of Springfield from Mount Vernon.
Yep. Michael, we think the same thing. That
Northwoods has a good point. Says you might be able to easier to talk to someone who's left the Amish community. That's a good idea. I might look around and see if I can find it, because I know they have what they call Rumspringa, and sometimes they don't go back.
Yep. They give them what? Is it a month or something like
that? I
don't
remember exactly how long it is. I don't really know that much about them. But Rumspringa, the kids are allowed to leave and go experience the outside world, and more often than not, they go home. And if I had left that simple of a life and come to see how crap is done in the cities, I'd probably go back too. I expected us to still be talking about adaptive camouflage much longer than this. We kind of burned through everything I had to talk about in just over an hour.
When do we ever stay on topic the entire show?
You got a good point. You have a very good point, sir.
It has happened. Just rare.
Jenkins says, one of my other lieutenants, Dave Mann, says Mann's expressed interest in going and taking photos on a trip. That would be great. Heck yeah. Because he's a hell of a photographer. If anybody can get something on the image, it's going to be Lieutenant Mann. Roxanne says there are Quakers or Amish south of Mount Vernon, several miles south. I don't really know anybody down that way though. You get down into that territory between Mount Vernon and Carthage. Yeah, that's really not my territory. I don't know too much about it. Estelle Harrington. Oh, sorry, that's my chair. I usually have my crisp filter going, but that's my chair making all the noise. I'll try to sit still. My back gets to hurting, I get to shifting. Sorry. Mrs. Moon says, did you look at the Flash of Beauty guy who talks about special effects in Bigfoot? I didn't watch I think they made a second one now. I watched part of the first one, but they were so convinced of the, they were a little wooish for my taste. So I really didn't plan on watching the second one. They were kind of out there on some of their conclusions. So I don't necessarily agree, and I don't really enjoy watching shows like that when they're really digging for the metaphysical and the supernatural. I just that's not my thing. I'm not really into it, so I don't watch a whole lot of those. Little Patty says, y'all watched any good cryptid movies lately? Man vs. Bigfoot wasn't bad. Acting was a little cheesy.
Yeah.
But it was pretty good. It had a cameo from Bob Gimlin at the end of it. So it was okay. It wasn't awesome, but it wasn't bad.
If that movie had a little bit more money and could have got some better actors, it had a really good premise for the most
It
part.
did have a good premise.
Up until the very, very end. That was kind of stupid towards the end.
A little bit, yeah.
But for the first 2/3 of the movie, I guess, was not bad. I mean, other than the cheesy acting. I'm trying to think, but
Have you seen Willow Creek?
yes.
That was directed by Bob Goldthwait. It was actually a really good movie.
Go over here!
You know, I was watching an interview with him, and he was just talking normal.
Yeah.
And they were asking him about the Police Academy movies, and he goes, to be completely honest, I was so high when I did those movies. Looking back, even I don't know what the hell I was saying.
Oh, old Bobcat.
Dawn of the Beast was pretty good. Again, acting was kind of cheesy. The premise was really good, and that's something I really enjoyed. Have you seen Something in the Woods?
I don't think I have.
It's pretty good. Again, the acting is not the best because there's a bunch of no-namers in it. But the story is actually loosely based on the Cowman of Copalis Beach story. So it's loosely based on a true story, but it's pretty good.
I still, like Big Legend's one of my favorites.
Big Legend's good.
Exists is really good.
Mm-hmm. Did you watch Bigfoot, the Lost Coast tapes?
Yeah, I've watched
that one. I loved it right up until the end when it was all aliens.
Yeah.
I was like, aliens. Yeah, that one was okay, but I don't generally watch the really cheesy ones that are for kids. I just give those a wide pass. Well, or ones like Bigfoot versus Megalodon. I mean, come on, Bigfoot would just get eaten.
Well, and you got one suburban Sasquatch. That's like birdemic levels of stupidity.
American Bigfoot is the same way.
Yeah.
I watched that one and I was like, what did I just watch? Oh, the worst Bigfoot movie of all time. I mean, it is an hour and 45 minutes or approximately 2 hours of my life I will never get back. The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot. I watched it because of Sam Elliott. I thought, hey, Sam's in it. It's going to be good. No. Nope. Sam Elliott couldn't save that turd. Oh, it was bad. Really hated that movie.
Yeah, I thought about suing the producer and director for the however long it was, hours of my life it took away from me.
One exception to the cheesy kitty movies is Harry and the Hendersons. While most of the movie is just pure grade C schlock, it's just a family comedy. That last scene at the very end, you get to see adaptive camouflage at work. When that last scene when Bigfoot's heading back in the woods and then all of a sudden there's like 20 of them out there, that was not CGI. That was not special effects. The director just said, we got all these guys in these Bigfoot costumes. He said, go out there and stand still. That's all they did. And those were just suits. Those weren't actual Sasquatch out there. Those were just people in suits.
Another one that's kind of cheesy, but it's a fairly decent movie. And it's got Miles O'Keefe, who some of you may remember played Tarzan in one of the Tarzan movies. He's in it. It's called Claude. And
I think I've watched that one.
Yeah, it's one where the Native American guy is the park ranger, and you got the sheriff, and you got the high school kids that are supposed to be doing their little project.
Yeah, I did watch that one.
It's actually not bad. Like I said, there's some cheesy acting in it, but it's not a bad movie if you can get past some of the cheese of it. But that's the problem with a lot of these cryptid movies is that's what you're going to have. You can't.
I probably think I could get away with fair use on the Harry and Hendersons. I think I'd get a copyright strike for that. So probably ought to quit looking for that. But if you watch the last minute of Harry and the Hendersons, when Bigfoot goes walking away in the woods, all of a sudden there's like 20 Bigfoot, and they just appear out of nowhere. And it's again one of the greatest examples of adaptive camouflage by accident. They put people in Bigfoot suits and just told them to stand still. And to me, it's just great because that was a fantastic effect, and it was nothing, no CGI, no special effects. It was just them standing still. Anyway, sorry, Robbie, go ahead.
I was just going to answer Roxanne. It's the man who killed Hitler, and then
the Bigfoot. Yeah, and then the Bigfoot. Man, that was a dumb movie. You seen Skookum?
Yeah, that was a pretty decent.
It was okay. Wasn't fantastic. What about Abominable?
Yes, that's cheesy.
Other than the opening its jaws super wide, that was the final scene with all the eyes. Oh, that's creepy as hell.
With the principal from the Breakfast Club. Hey, Callie, you calm down there. He plays the sheriff. That I guess he's just a character actor because that's the principal from the Breakfast Club being the sheriff. He's the exact same character.
Monstrous was okay. Kind of a weird story with a Bigfoot as the backdrop. Bigfoot's not really the main focus of it, but it's like, oh, and then there's a Bigfoot there.
Yeah.
There's one called Sasquatch that was made back in the 70s. It was made documentary style. That one's pretty good. A little cheesy, but pretty damn good.
There's another one. It's kind of like I can't remember the name, and I think we've had this conversation before. But basically, the guy's dad disappeared. I can't remember if he was hunting or making a documentary or something. So the guy and his friends go looking for his dad, and they end up finding this old guy that lives in the.
I know which one you're talking about, but I cannot think of the name of it.
Actually, not a bad. Like I said, there a bunch of no names, but it's actually not a bad movie. I watched it probably about 2 or 3 months ago. That's not a bad movie. I watched it.
It wasn't real bad. I would watch it again.
Yeah, I mean, it was the second time I'd watched it. Because I was like, did I really just remember this, or was it worse than I remembered? I watched it again. I was like, oh, this actually wasn't that bad.
There was one movie. It wasn't about Bigfoot. It was about Wendigo. Dark Was the Night.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good movie. The effects are a little cheesy, but it was really well done, and the acting was not bad.
Now, the best Wendigo movie was that one we talked about, the Ritual. Was that the name of it?
Yeah,
in Canada. That was
whew, that was pretty creepy.
I wouldn't put that in the category of a B movie. That was a pretty
good movie, even though the acting was not awesome. Yeah, the special effects were fantastic.
Yeah, we talked about Big Legend a minute ago. That's one of my favorites.
Primal Rage.
Yes, Primal Rage.
That may be the benchmark of Bigfoot movies for me.
I watched that again 2 weeks ago, I think, just because we were talking about it again. I said, I need to watch that again. That's where that thing sneaks up behind her and cuts the piece of her hair off, and she turns around. There's nothing there. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, that movie would give me the heebie-jeebies.
I forgot how. Well, I don't. There might be some people in the audience that hadn't seen it, but the ending of the movie, it'll get you if you ain't careful, because you kind of find yourself not really liking the guy until towards the end of the movie, and you're like,
yeah. In the beginning, I was like, yeah, just go ahead and kill this guy. I don't like him. I wanted to see more of the sheriff. I thought the sheriff was an interesting character, and they kind of did away with him pretty fast. No, he didn't get as big a part as he should have.
Well, he made it to the final act.
But he wasn't in the movie much.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you need to finish it, Wyatt. Primal Rage is a good one.
Oh yeah.
Well, there were parts of Primal Rage that were most of the movie was great, but the weapons at the end, I could have done without that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, every movie's going to have its strong and weak points.
Right.
I thought it was pretty well done, though.
Yeah, overall, it definitely recommend.
I really wanted to see the rest of the movies that were supposed to come out based on Big Legend, but they just never materialized. It was supposed to be the part of a new monster verse or something like that.
Yeah, it was. They were doing the same because when it first came out was when Marvel Studios was really still hot and heavy, and that was their verse. But nobody has been able to get one of those universes right, other than maybe Legendary with the Godzilla and King Kong movies. That's really the only other universe that's been somewhat successful past the Marvel.
Did you notice in Willow Creek that the main character, the main guy in Willow Creek is the guy in Expedition Bigfoot that always stays back at base camp?
I didn't notice that.
Same guy.
Huh.
Of course, Legend of Boggy Creek, that movie freaked me out as a kid. It did. I mean, just blew my mind.
But the first one, I don't really look at that as a movie. That, to me, that's a documentary. And I think
the sequels were not as good.
Yeah, the sequels were just movies.
Yeah,
they were cash grabs based on how successful.
But the first one, they were trying to document the events that happened.
Yeah, and nobody thought it was going to be as successful as it was. And then when it was breaking box office records, I think they made that movie for
like $100,000 or something like that. Wasn't a whole lot of money even then.
That much. And
I'm going to consult the Googles.
Like quadrupled what it cost to make.
They made it on a budget of $160,000.
Oh, you're right.
And it made $25 million.
Yeah.
I think it made its money back.
Yeah. If it cost $160,000 to make and made $25 million, what would those two terms be in today's?
That's a lot of money.
That'd be like making.
That would still be a low budget even by today's standards.
Yeah, but that would be making billions.
It'd be making a shitload of money. This $25 million in 1972 was a shitload of money. Did we mention Night of the Demon?
I think somebody mentioned it in the chat. I saw it because I was about to say something about it. We got talking about another movie, and I forgot. But
someone was texting me about something in the woods just the other day, and they didn't know that it was based on the Cowman-Kopala speech. We should do a show on the Cowman-Kopala speech. That's an interesting story.
Yeah. Roxanne says, do we think it was a Gugway in Boggy Creek? I don't think so. I think it was.
Well, remember, some of the tracks were excuse me.
Only that one trackway in that bean field.
True.
No other track ever anywhere, or at least during the time of the movie was come out. No other tracks ever said anything about three-toed. Now, Honey Island Swamp Monster, MK has said multiple times there's been a lot there, but Boggy Creek and Falk and all that, 99.9% of the tracks they found around there are your standard Bigfoot tracks. Those three-toed tracks were only found in that guy's bean field. So true. I don't think that the Falk monster that everybody saw, I don't think that was a Gugway. Now,
I think there was more than one creature down there.
Right. That's what I was about to say. Now, were there Gugway down there? Very possible. And, this is like the story, and when Johnny and I did a show on this, the Tennessee Wild Man. It's called the Tennessee Wild Man, but if you start looking at people's eyewitness accounts and things like that, there's like 5 different descriptions. One of them sounds more like they're describing a skunk ape. One just sounds like they're describing a gugway. The other one just like a patty gimlet. There's like 4 or 5 different descriptions on there. So I think there are areas that, super highways, for lack of a better term, where multiple speed, interact, cross paths, things like that. It's just areas where there's overlap, and Falk may be one of those places. It's my opinion, anyway.
I think you're probably right on that. Like the thing you pointed out about the Honey Island swamp monster, that when you get down in Louisiana, that's really all one big watershed, a bunch of interconnected swamps, and if you've got a 3-toed creature living in Honey Island, they're easily could travel pretty much anywhere in Louisiana, and Falk, Arkansas is about as close to Louisiana as you can get without being in Louisiana.
Yep.
If there's 3-toed creatures down there, they've got the run of that watershed down there, and there's tons of swamps and rivers and lakes and creeks and bayous where something like that could travel for hundreds of miles without ever being seen. Can you hear my chair now? Okay, I started at crisp. So we'll see if it actually starts cutting my mic out now. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. I can cut out the background noise and have a solid mic, or I can have questionable mic and cut out the background noise. So keep our fingers crossed. Hopefully the mic still works just fine. There's a lot of really B-grade Squatch movies made too. Oh, yeah. Mostly the sequels of Boggy Creek were pretty bad. There was one, I'm trying to remember the name of the dang thing. It was just called Bigfoot. It was Bigfoot went up against a biker gang. I think it was made in the 70s or early 80s. It is cheap.
79, 80, somewhere around in there.
Somewhere around in there. Okay, here it is. It was made in 1970. Bigfoot is a 1970 independently made American low-budget science fiction film produced by Anthony Cardoza and directed by Robert F. Slotzer. The film stars or co-stars a few well-known actors and family namesakes. John Carradine was in it. He was an old creepy old actor. Chris Mitchum, Joy Lansing, Ken Maynard, Doodles Weaver, and Lindsay Crosby.
Bonus trivia question for the chat. What other famous horror movie was Carradine in?
That's a good one.
Do you know the answer to that one?
He's been in so many, though.
Really, really famous. Very early 80s.
Early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Was he in The Howling?
Yes, he was.
That's right, he was. He was in The Howling. Holy crap.
Teeth are getting dull. Let me go. I just want to end it all. That was him.
David Carradine was a creepy dude. Every one of his sons were good actors. You ever watch and I know this is not any relation to a Bigfoot movie whatsoever, but probably one of my favorite renditions of the James Younger gang story is a movie that came out, I want to say in 72 or 74, called The Long Riders. Had all of the Carradine brothers in it. They played the Youngers. Had the Keach brothers in it, and they played Frank and Jesse. There were other brothers in it, played cousins, and oh my God, that was just such a good movie. Let me look that up real quick. Yeah, it was 1980 is when The Long Riders came out. It's one of my all-time favorite westerns. I mean, to me, it's up there with Tombstone. Just a fantastic movie. It's got the Carradines in it. It's got the Quaids. The Quaid brothers are in it. The Keach brothers are in it. So what they cast the Youngers, all the Youngers were all played by brothers. So they got brothers playing brothers. And they did the same thing with Frank and Jesse, brothers playing brothers. And I thought it worked out so well because not only did they already have the chemistry of being brothers, you could actually see the emotions brought forth these guys when it looked like their own brothers were getting killed. Yeah, it's an intense movie.
Yeah, those are some good old actors. I watched the Magnificent Seven again, the new one. Normally, I like the older ones better, like True Grit. I like the old True Grit better, but I honestly like the new version of the Magnificent Seven better than the old one.
The new version of Magnificent Seven is really good. Nothing against the old one, but Yul Brynner was just kind of a ham-fisted actor. He was not a great actor.
Well, and he wasn't a good cowboy either. Yul Brynner to me is, Spartacus and that kind of, that's Yul Brynner.
To me that was a bit of miscasting. It was like probably cast by the same guy that cast John Wayne as Genghis Khan.
Yeah,
I like your taste in women, Target. But come on.
But the old Magnificent Seven.
John Wayne. Whoever cast John Wayne as Genghis Khan needs to be punched in the face repeatedly. I love John Wayne to death, but that is like his worst film, bar none.
I agree. But the original Magnificent Seven was dang near a musical, if you think about it.
Yeah. Although it did have a good soundtrack.
True, but
it did have a really good soundtrack. But yeah, I agree. I think the cast they had for the new Magnificent Seven, I think they worked better together. They were all convincing. I think that bear's wearing people clothes.
My favorite line from that movie.
That's a great movie.
Well, you got Ethan Hawke and Denzel Washington already have good chemistry together because of Training Day, so they were great together. Chris Pratt had great chemistry with everybody that he was on set with, because Chris Pratt's just a great actor. The guy who played the what was the Mexican guy that Chris Pratt and him kept back and forth with each other till the end.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
He says, Chris Pratt says, I got 6, and he's like, I got 6. He goes, I got 7. He was a good actor. He was great in the movie. Vincent D'Onofrio was amazing.
D'Onofrio, he really cracks me up. I got a right to take back what's mine.
I'll say a prayer for you. Just a little
prayer.
And
some really good quotable lines. And Denzel did a really good job at that too.
Denzel's a great actor. He's
pretty much everything. Book of Eli, dude. Yeah, that was a freaking great film.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen Denzel in a role that I didn't like him in. I think everything I've ever seen him.
Have you watched the 3 Equalizer movies he did? Oh, those are good. Oh man, those are good.
Yeah,
I love the little affectation of him setting the watch and then setting it down. I'm like, folks fix and die.
And I don't think John Wick would have been as popular if it hadn't been for the Equalizer, because
those were good movies. Those were really. But speaking of Magnificent Seven, here's a little bit of obscurity for you. We're looking at the mid-90s. A short-lived, only made it 2 seasons, TV show starring Michael Biehn as Chris Larrabee of Magnificent Seven TV series. It was really good.
Michael Biehn of
Navy SEAL. Way before he was in Tombstone. This would have been about, it was right after Annette and I first got married when we watched it. We didn't have kids yet. So this would have been 93, 94.
So that was after the Terminator.
Mm-hmm. Michael Biehn in his prime, baby.
So that would have been like either what year did Navy SEALs come out?
Well, I shall consult the Googles.
94, 95, maybe not.
1990.
90. So, and he was also in The Abyss.
This was a good movie.
Yeah, he was the one that went nuts in The Abyss.
Also played a Navy SEAL in that.
Yep.
Oh, came out in 90. I was thinking it came out in like 98. So Tombstone, it would have been right about the time he played.
Yep.
He played
and he also played a Navy SEAL in The Rock.
In The Rock. Yeah, he's pretty versatile. He's a really good actor.
He's definitely your go-to Navy SEAL commander in.
That's true. But we can't talk about Michael Biehn movies without once again saying rest in peace to Val Kilmer. We lost a good one. That guy was a hell of an actor. Yeah, Slanja Val.
Fly high, man, fly high.
And no, I'm not a LA Rams fan. I've had this glass since they were in St. Louis. That's a St. Louis Rams glass. And if I could scrape that logo off of it, I would. But it's one of my favorite beer glasses. And well, I'm not drinking beer though, so I'm drinking RC. But thank you for the super chat, LS420. He had a comment that says, just out of curiosity, thoughts on having cryptids in a cyberpunk universe. Imagine Cyberpunk 2020, Arasaka PMCs in the Ozarks hunting Gugway. Dude, that would be freaky.
I was about to say, imagine this with you, because I have no clue what any of that meant.
I played Cyberpunk 2020. I also used to play Shadowrun. Can you imagine a fucking... I'm sorry about that. I dropped the F-bomb. Can you imagine a freaking street samurai Sasquatch? Holy crap. No, 9 feet of cybernetics and anger.
I don't know what a street samurai is. I know what a regular samurai is. So
in the Shadowrun role-playing game that I played back in college, street samurai were basically warriors that had all of their augmentations wired in. They would have like dermal armor and bionics, and these guys were like tanks on legs.
Fair enough.
It was a fun game. I haven't played it in a long time, but it was fun.
You know me, if it ain't Call of Duty or Ark or Bigfoot, I don't know what.
Looking at other Bigfoot films. I don't think I've seen this one. 2013 film called The Hunted. Have you seen it?
The Hunted. Oh, that's so familiar.
The synopsis: hoping for fame, Jake, played by Josh Stewart, and Stevie, Ronnie Jean Blevins, have decided to film a pilot for a hunting show deep in a secluded forest. They've set their eyes on a large, impressive buck nicknamed Movie Star, which Jake believes will ensure their show will get picked for distribution. Failing at this task is not an option, so Jake goes to lengths to ensure that nothing will spoil their hunt or ruin the footage. Sound familiar?
Yep. I haven't seen the movie, but I've rolled through it, and I'm going to watch that one of these days.
Hang on. Maybe I have. Okay. Yes, I have seen that one. That's not a Bigfoot. It's about a ghost.
I don't know if this is for me or you, but Sonia said somebody, or did we see the comment about the book earlier? I don't know if it's about your book or my book or whatever. Which one was it, Son? Which one of us was it? Because I didn't see a comment about either one of our books. So,
didn't either. Neil's going ahead and out for the night. Good night, Neil.
Not Neil.
I did not see the comment. Sonia, if you know where the comment is and can find it, can you repost it or text it to Robbie or me? Richie Evans says, good evening, y'all. I got back from the Bigfoot conference in Ocala, and it was bad this year. I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm kind of glad I didn't drive all the way down there for it then. Cajun Dog says, here's a topic for a show. What do you do in the event of a Red Dawn situation? Ooh, That's a good show. That's a good idea. All right, well, we'll think on that one a spell, but I want to make sure I've got both Doc and Steve there so we can get their points of view on that as well. Sonia says it's Operation Lily and Other Tales. What was it about it? Oh, she said she told him the answer. Okay, cool. Willow Creek kind of freaked me out, though, even though it was kind of a found footage kind of thing. But at the end, when things are going crazy, when the camera is moving around, if you slow that way down, some of the images it pans over are absolutely terrifying. The creature effects were really good.
Which one did you say exists? Is that the one you're talking about?
Willow Creek.
Oh, Willow Creek. Because exists is the same way. It, right there.
Too.
Yeah.
But
that's why I thought you said that at first, because I was like, because that one was
like the last minute and a half of Willow Creek is all that camera just going crazy.
Yeah.
And I went back and like slowed it down and played it, moved it forward a couple frames at a time so I could look at all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, I didn't see that the first time. Oh, okay. Sonia says L.S. Stoner was asking what book the story where Steve Lilly and the Hunt were fighting the Gugway. Okay, yeah, I didn't see that. Didn't see that question. Thank you for answering it. There's an oldie. Back from 1976, The Creature from Black Lake.
That's a pretty decent
That was pretty creepy. I mean, that one kind of gave me vibes of the movie Southern Comfort. Only with a monster.
I was about to say it was Southern Comfort with Bigfoot.
Yeah, Bigfoot, Southern Comfort. Bigfoot smashed out on SoCo. Nobody really big name. Well, Jack Elam is in it, but he wasn't a huge name.
There was somebody else in that movie that turned out to be.
Well, this is okay. It was written and directed by Joy N. Houck Jr. Starring Jack Elam, Dub Taylor. Who's Dub Taylor?
Dub Taylor. Yeah, he's been in every freaking Western ever. He's what sits there with the old.
Okay, I recognize him now that I see him.
Yeah, the old hat.
Yeah, like they had the like folded up in the front egg iron hat.
Yeah, he was in Back to the Future 3. He was one of the ones that was sitting at the table, sitting there with Mr. Haney, and Dub Taylor was sitting there, and there was one other, maybe it was Gabby Hayes. I can't remember who, but Dub's been in it like every Western ever.
Creature from Black Lake, I think, was trying to recapture Legend of Boggy Creek because it's set almost in the same area, right there on the Louisiana-Arkansas border. Yeah, I think that movie was probably, an attempt to capitalize on the success of that. But that was a pretty good movie. It was kind of creepy. And it was another one of those where you don't really see the creature that much.
But it was one of those less is more type things that were at work.
Exactly. Yeah. That one, if you can find that one, I would recommend watching it. It's called The Creature from Black Lake. It was made in 1976. So when you do see the special effects, expect them to be a little cheesy. I mean, it's like the old Kolchak the Night Stalker episodes. The writing was really good, but the special effects did not age well.
Like the one with Pierre Maffei.
Yeah, Paramount Bay. They did. That was again the more, less is more. But you didn't see the Paramount Bay until the very end, and you only got like glimpses of it reflected in glass and shadows moving, and it was freaking terrifying. But at the end, it just looked like Andre the Giant with slime thrown on him.
Yeah, it looked like a pissed off pile of leaves coming after you.
Yeah, it wasn't quite as terrifying at the very end, but by that point, I was so invested in the story. That's still, I think, my favorite Kolchak episode.
I like the one were they on the ship with the werewolf? Was that what that?
Yeah, they were on the cruise ship with the werewolf.
I like that one.
He was melting jewelry he stole. Oh, Kolchak. Gotta love that guy.
Like I said, though, I cannot watch Kolchak without hearing, oh, that's a major award.
Darren McGavin was perfect for that.
He was perfect for just about everything he was in.
Darren McGavin was a great actor. Okay, here's another oldie. 1954, The Snow Creature. I think I watched that once, a long time ago, on like a late night movie thing. There used to be a station here in Springfield that did what they call Tales of Terror. This was back in the 80s. And on a Saturday night, you could watch this guy in some really cheesy vampire makeup presenting these. He would show these old schlocky movies, starting at like 10 p.m. to run until almost 2. And he would show some of these old schlocky monster films. I mean, I watched the old Abbott and Costello movie, Meet Frankenstein, or Meet the Werewolf. I watched a bunch of those old, really cheesy, 1950s and 60s, Taste the Blood of Dracula, the old Hammer film Dracula films. I watched a bunch of those, watching Tales of Terror every weekend.
Yeah, that kind of show is still real popular because you still got Svengoolie that still does that kind of stuff.
I'd love to be like host one of those here in Springfield. Like get the Galloy Theater behind it and just have a blast with it.
Well, think about the original Fright Night. I mean, that's what Peter Vincent. That was what he was one of those hosts. But you got Svengoolie that still does it. There's another guy that I can't think of his name, but he's got
YouTube channel. That's all it is.
Yeah,
they basically MST3K old classic horror films.
MST3K, that's another great one. I love
MST3K, man. I loved that. When I was in college, man, we would have I had a tiny ass apartment, but in college there'd be 30 of us packed into that apartment watching, because I had a pretty good sized TV for 1990.
Yes, Angela, Svengoolie.
We'd be piled into that apartment, everybody drinking beer and watching MST3K.
They did that. You remember that old werewolf movie we talked about, where they dug up the werewolf skull, and the guy got scratched by the tooth of the skull, and it turned him into a werewolf. They did that one on there once. That was one of the funniest episodes I think I have ever seen in my entire life.
The one I have laughed, I mean, like side-splitting laughed until almost peed myself laughed, was, I can't remember which movie it was. It was a Godzilla film that MST3K did. And when he got into it with the monster, they did pro wrestling commentary to the whole fight. Yep. Oh my God, I was dying.
That would be Godzilla versus Megalon, because that's the one where him and Jet Jaguar, because it was a tag team. Godzilla and Jet Jaguar fought Megalon and Gigan. And that's the
guy, that kid wake up in the back of that trailer, and then goes, the guy says, "What we are?" And the kid goes, "I reckon we're in some kind of metal box." And then Tom Crow goes, "You're from Osaka, and son, I don't think you reckon much of anything."
Yeah, that's the one where
MST3K was so funny.
Where Godzilla gets back over here and takes off running and jumps up and slides on his tail and drop kicks the guy. That's the one you're talking about.
Yep, we should do that sometime. If we got be you and Steve, I'll be you and Steve and Doc all together. Just like set up the big screen in my living room and put my webcam behind us, and then put the chairs in front, and we can watch some cheesy movie and we all sit there and make fun of it.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
Especially the drunker we got. Bobby Joe says DA needs to add it. Add what? What'd I miss?
No, we get to talking. I miss some of the chat sometimes.
Isabel says MST3K people sent videos to the club we had at Merced College. We got to screen them at the big theater classroom. That is cool. But man, MST3K was so fun. I loved that.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Roxanne knows more than the movies about me and DA. I take that challenge.
We could pull some obscure movie references.
Yeah. And DA proved that the last time we were in the series.
Yeah, when we were all riding in the SUV, Doc was driving. I'm like, Robbie's got like photographic knowledge of every horror film ever made. And Doc's like, yeah, maybe. And I'm like, hey, Robbie, what was the name of that movie? And I rattled off the basic plot of this really cheesy werewolf movie from like 1987. And he's like, oh, that's blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, he's right. That's what.
I accept that challenge.
I looked at Doc and nodded, and I looked back at Robbie. I'm like, "Hey, Robbie, what was the name of that werewolf movie where the kids go to the cabin out in the woods, and the werewolf turns out to be one of the kids' dads, and he comes out and attacks them all?" And he goes, "Well, that's
Big Bad Wolf," and that's it.
Whatever it was, I'm like, "That was the one."
The one where the werewolf talks.
Yeah,
Good. You got any sack? Let's find out.
We could do just a show on just us talking about old horror films, not just at Bigfoot films, but we could spend a couple hours just talking horror films. Man, I have watched some really good and some really schlocky horror films. Oh, speaking of schlocky films, do you remember a movie that was called Schlock? It was John Carpenter's first movie. It was a college project, and it was about this Neanderthal that got thawed out and was going on a rampage. That movie was so funny when he's playing the piano with the blind girl, and he's just like,
"Yep."
That movie is hilarious, cheesy, but absolutely hilarious.
That's like you said, it was when he was in film school. But I mean, it set the tone for the direction he was going to go in.
Yeah.
Maybe not for Swamp Thing, but
yeah, Swamp Thing was not awesome. Okay, let's look at a John Carpenter film versus a modern remake. The Fog.
I didn't like the modern one.
The modern one just couldn't measure up.
No.
John Carpenter, man, all you could really see was the shapes and the fog, and that was terrifying. But the modern one just couldn't recapture it. It just wasn't as good.
Well, the modern one was too reliant on CGI, and that was early in CGI's.
Yeah, well, it wasn't good.
That was when
the actors they chose, not the ones I would have picked.
No. But
the original Fog, dude, at the end when they kill Hal Holbrook, I was like,
and the thing is, Carpenter had a lot of hits, but he had a lot of misses too, and a lot of people don't realize that he had a lot of misses, and really, until he had the Scream series start up again, he had a lot, like Escape from New York was pretty good, but Escape from LA sucked.
Escape from LA was bad.
And between Escape from New York,
what about They Live?
They Live, I like They Live, but there's a lot of people that didn't like it.
That fight scene between Roddy Piper and I can't think of his name.
Keith David.
Yeah, I was going to call him David Keith, and I knew that wasn't right.
Well,
that fight
there is David Keith as an actor.
Yeah, but that fight scene, dude, that's worth watching that movie just for that fight scene. They beat the living whale out of one another.
And I watched an interview that Roddy did about that, and he said that Carpenter asked him, said, well, "Do I need to get a stunt double in here?" And he said, I looked at Keith and I said, "Can you handle it?" And he's like, "Hell yeah, I can handle it." He said, so Carpenter just said, "All right, go for it." And they did. And they just, like you said, they beat the brakes off each other for like 15 minutes.
Fight scene lasts forever.
And Carpenter just followed them around.
Rolling down the side of that freaking mountain. And, oh my God. They did. They beat like you said, they beat the brakes off one another. And it is just cinematic gold. Probably one of the best overall, just straight up fights in a movie I think I've ever seen. Roddy Piper made some real crappy movies, though. Hell Comes to Frogtown.
The concept of that movie was good, but the end result was not that.
Yeah, even Sandal Bergman couldn't save that film.
No.
Oh, that movie was cheap.
Yeah, that was definitely a.
Well, Patty says Roddy Piper said that wasn't a movie; it was a documentary. Well, he ain't wrong.
Yeah. Well, the movie itself was, I guess you could call it satire because it was definitely pointed at a lot of that stuff.
It's making a statement, and it did it well.
Yeah, it did. But there's a really interesting documentary that I watched about that movie. I can't remember the name of it, but I found it on YouTube. And it actually goes into points out some things that if you're not paying attention, I mean, you'll catch the stuff that's right there on the nose, but there's things in there that like certain aliens that they looked at through the glasses were, until he pointed out, I was like, man, he's right. They don't react the way some of the other aliens react. So it's like, is everybody asleep, or is these people might be aliens, but do they know they're aliens? Because they don't react. Because you got aliens talking on their watches, but you got other aliens walking around shopping like everybody else is supposed to be doing, and they're not reacting to anything. Like, you know, you'll have a scene.
That movie's an interesting commentary.
Yeah.
You know what they were hinting with that is some people are on the wrong side and don't even know it.
Well, Red, I can't think of his name, but he played Red in Back to the Future series, the one that was the bum, and then all of a sudden he was in the, you know, he was on the wrong side, didn't even know it, but he thought they were on that side towards the end. Oh, RoboCop was another one that was full of satire.
Yeah. You know, the original RoboCop was written by Frank Miller that wrote The Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Love Frank Miller.
And see,
Frank Miller is one of those guys that really tells a good dark story.
Yeah,
the best run of Daredevil was when Frank Miller had the comic.
And
that was really the only time I liked Daredevil, to be honest.
But there again, that's another example of a director that hits it out of the park with one and then stinks it up with others. Paul Verhoeven.
Not so good. RoboCop 3, much better.
But still stupid.
Still stupid, but not as bad as 2.
No, not as bad as 2. But it's just like some movies just don't need sequels. Super Troopers did not need a sequel.
No, the sequel was bad. Unfortunately, yes, the sequel was bad. I wanted it to be good. It just wasn't.
No, they should have just left well enough alone. They tried way too hard, reached way too far. And I heard they're thinking about doing a third one. I'm like, why?
Why would you do that? Lightning did not strike in that bottle twice.
Yes, as Paul Verhoeven did Starship Troopers and RoboCop.
Did you hear they're thinking about they're actually planning to redo Starship Troopers?
I didn't hear that.
Mm-hmm. The guy that did District 9, the guy that directed District 9 is supposed to be taking the project. I hope, well, District 9 was pretty good, but I hope this time, if they're going to make Starship Troopers, they actually bother to read the book.
Yeah, that was totally...
If you're a fan of the book, you hate the movie. The movie, they used the name Starship Troopers. That was literally about it. It was not, the book was not a hokey comedy. Not in any way, shape, or form. The book was a straight-up political commentary.
I heard that the Highlander remake is pretty close to being in completion. You heard who's playing Connor, right?
Yeah. Okay. My question is, if Superman is Connor McLeod, who the hell are they going to find big enough to be the Kurgan?
I don't know, because Henry Cavill is not a small guy.
No, he is not a small man.
Because I want to say The original Connor. Oh, what's his name? God, what? I had his name locked. Anyway, I want to say he's like what 5'10" ish.
Oh, Chris Lambert.
Yeah, Christopher Lambert, whatever. However,
You know, the irony in the first Highlander film is the actual guy, the character who was from Scotland, was cast as a French guy, and the actual Scot was
played by French
played.
guy.
Yeah, I'm not Spanish. I'm Egyptian. Oh, you complain endlessly. You've the manners of a goat, and you smell like a dung heap. Connery was great in that. He ham-fisted his way through it, but he was great in it. But that role called to be ham-fisted. It really did.
Oh yeah, you had to. I mean,
Hey, still, you stupid haggis. Haggis? What is haggis? Sheep's stomach stuffed with meat and barley. And what do you do with it? You eat it. How revolting. God, I love that movie. Have you ever seen the director's cut? Adds about 40 minutes of footage, and it is worth watching.
I hadn't seen the director's cut of the first. I've seen the director's cut of the second one.
And the second one, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't exist. I watched the director's cut of the first one with my boys, and they're like, "Dad, that was awesome. Are there any more?" And I'm like, nope, there was just this one.
That was another movie that did not need a sequel.
Yeah, and the third one where they cast Mario Van Peebles as the bad guy. They lost me when they get the whole Planet Zeiss crap. I'm like, come on.
Is bad as the third one was, is still better than that piece of crap second one.
The second one sucked. The second one was an abomination. I can't believe Connery did that. Did you? Speaking of Sean Connery, did you know he turned down the role of Gandalf in Lord of the Rings?
I did not know that.
He's like, this will never make any money. Boy, was he wrong.
Yeah. He turned down a lot of roles, though, especially there towards the end.
He was pretty selective.
But he took League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah. I wanted a sequel to that. Him playing Alan Quartermain.
Yeah. I think he
League
did
of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Well, I'm kind of glad that they toned it down because the comics were freaking weird. And I don't know if you've read any of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen comics, but the Invisible Man gets screwed to death by a werewolf. Yeah, that kind of weirdness.
Oh, Curtis won't know about any updates on Lakeview Man.
Yeah, hopefully I'll have it done this week. I'm still waiting to hear back from Adam, my cover artist.
Me too. Because I should be done tomorrow-ish on book 2 for me.
Well, we are after the 10-hour mark. Probably ought to go start winding things down. I want to give a big shout out to the moderators. You guys did an awesome job. Thank you guys for everything you guys do. A shout out to E.D. Testerman, who's in the chat tonight, fellow author. And go check out his I believe it's E.D.Testerman on Amazon. Check out his books. And watch his show. It's called, you can see him in here under the Bizarre and the Unknown. That's his YouTube channel. He's trying to hit 1,000 subs. So if you guys would go over and give him a little love, again, that's the Bizarre and the Unknown here on YouTube. And let's help him get to his 1,000 subscriber mark. But as we're winding things down tonight, we didn't do one of the affiliate links, so we haven't actually done one in a while. So, Robbie, why don't we talk a little bit about Scalawag Tactical? We haven't mentioned them in a minute.
Which one am I going to grab?
I think all mine are packed. I don't have any right here on my desk.
Don't worry. I got them.
You got the cover?
I got it. I ain't got my big ones there. They're still packed up, but I happen to have a couple right here. I'm out of practice on it, so let me. Scallywag Tactical is another one of our affiliates, veteran-owned company. Make some really cool anything from fantasy type blades to very practical, boot dagger versus a not your typical push dagger.
Oh, the shark's tooth.
Yep, this is the shark's tooth, and I think this is the double trouble. I think. I think that's what it's called, but and everything in between.
Great pocket knives too.
Yeah, probably some of the best pocket knives.
I have my little neck one. That's the only one I've got on my desk.
At least you got one. Yeah, I wonder why you think this dagger's so cool, Wyatt. Maybe because you was carrying the exact one when we were last down at Combs Ferry. Anyway, they make some of the best knives that you could go out and buy. Really good price. Check out the blemish blade section. A lot of times it's just a box that's messed up in it, and Craig's not going to sell something that comes in a messed up container. He'll discount it for you, basically. Go pick that out. Use code DARoberts10 at checkout. Get yourself an extra 10% off. They're constantly adding new blades. Go check them out. Tell them we sent you. Scallywag Tactical. That's all I got to say about that.
Roxanne asked about my knife that has Gray Eagle on the blade. That one was actually made by Ken Brock. And unfortunately, it is packed at the moment. I will try to dig it out. The bulk of my pew-pews and all of my knives are in boxes in a closet because we just don't have the room to unpack everything over here. And hopefully we'll be moving back in the next week and a half, 2 weeks. But check out Scallywag Tactical. There's a reason I use them in my books because they're fantastic blades. It's a veteran-owned company, and they're outstanding quality and outstanding customer service. So tell them we sent you, and the owner's a guy named Craig Burhart, just an awesome dude. Let him know we sent you.
Yep.
But there's something else I was going to do. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that as well. I mean, there's this book. It's called, Shadow something. I mean, sounds.
I don't know what.
Oh, you might know it. There you go. Shadow Walker.
What was the name of it again?
Shadow Walkers, Silver Star, I think it is.
This.
Oh, yeah. That one. That's the one.
Yeah, some ugly guy wrote this book. Some ugly guy with a cowboy hat on. I think there's a picture of him in this book somewhere.
That is a good picture, by the way. I thought it was a good picture.
Look at that. I'm going to get in trouble for that remark with somebody. But anyway, not yet. That'll happen eventually, but not yet. Yeah, Shadow Walkers, Silver Stars, first book in the series. I think I might be close to over 100 units sold so far, counting last month and this month. It's a story based out of here in Pickens County, where I'm from, South Carolina. And there's been some people ask if this is in the DA verse or if it's its own universe.
It's in the Jediverse.
Well, it's kind of sort of. DA's universe exists sort of in here, so to speak, I guess. Wouldn't that be the best way to put it, DA?
A little meta, but yeah, I like it.
Because this guy...
His book references mine.
So. Yeah, this guy's in the book, and his books are in the book. If that makes sense. Some of the characters from his book are mentioned in the book. It's just, like he said, it's a meta thing. One guy, somebody put a comment on there. I don't know who said it, because it was just like Amazon, but said, I've never heard of another author being a main character in an author's book. Interesting concept. We tried to see it and just to see how it worked. Apparently people like it. So
Annette's been reading the Apex Predator books, and she was like, "This is the first time I think I've ever seen where the monsters are the heroes." I'm like,
maybe there's another one you need to read that does that.
There's maybe some other ones out there you might want to check out.
So, and the second one in the series is Shadow Walkers, the Creature of Scapor Swamp. And this one has got just a shade over 46,000 words in it. I just hit 50,102 ish in book 2, and hopefully it'll be done in tonight or tomorrow ish, maybe. I'm in the final fight scene right now.
I've got 2, maybe 3 chapters left to go, and I'll be done with the next Lakeview Man, which is Dead of Winter. But anyway, go ahead. We're talking about your books, not mine. Let me shut my mouth.
Go ahead. Go show.
Yeah.
So yeah, but they kind of the two kind of coexist in and amongst one another. So, and there's some stuff coming down the pipe that
I wish we could write them that fast.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, I've done what 2 in about 2 months. So
my favorite was I released a book, and it was one of the Apex Predator books, and this was like a year or 2 ago. I released it. It hit Amazon. 4 hours later, I got a text message from somebody, "When's the next one coming out?" I'm like, this one hasn't even got a rating on Amazon yet. It ain't been out long enough.
Yeah, I've got one.
I wish I could write them that fast. I really do. I wish I could just, again, reference to Shadowrun. Wish I could be like a Decker and just plug a cord into my brain and download the book. But unfortunately, it's not like that quick.
Yeah. Oh, it's in there. It's just it don't come out that quick.
Right. I turn alcohol and coffee into words.
But yeah, so if you're interested in it, if you hadn't already got it, check it out. If you like his books, you'll probably like this one. That's what I've been told anyway. And I should have a second one out. I too am waiting for my book guy Adam for my cover guy Adam to get back with me. Because DA had to text him.
Good work, but he kind of falls off the grid once in a while.
Yeah. DA texted him before we started the show tonight because we, like I said, we're both right there at the we need it.
Thank you, Vicky. Yeah, it's one of those. Cajun Dog says I drink and I write. That's actually what my shirt says. That's what I do. I drink and I know things. That's a Game of Thrones reference. But little Patty's in bed. Good night, little Patty. Thank you for being here. But check out Robbie's book. I mean, it is really good. You guys are going to enjoy it. He's going to have a second one out soon, and I'm very proud of my brother from another mother that he was talking about writing a book for a while, and I've been telling him for well over a year to do it. And I'm glad that he finally took the plunge and did it. And I'm very proud of him. And check out his book and show him the love and support you guys have shown me over the years. Again, somebody asked about my book. The next Lakeview Man installment, which is called Dead of Winter, should be out in the next couple of weeks, hopefully less. It'll depend on how quickly I can get the edits done. And then I've got some other stuff I'm going to be working on. I started a new short story night tonight. This is going to be kind of a back burner side project. It's called The Big Muddy Murders. And it's going to take place up in central Missouri, up along the Missouri River. I'm kind of excited about the direction this one's going. And I've got a couple other projects going, so over the next few months, I hope to release quite a few more projects. I just got to get my butt back to work. And it's tough working in this house because I don't have the privacy that I once did. And I'm not knocking anybody in the family. It's not their fault. We're just on top of one another. This house is tiny. So unfortunately it is what it is. But if we can get back over to that house in the next couple of weeks and I can set my office back up again and shut the door and write without interruption, yeah, I should be able to really knuckle down and get a lot of stuff done. But thank you guys so much for everything. And make sure you check out my books at DARoberts.net. Hey, thank you for the super chat, Wyatt.
Thanks, Wyatt.
Brother. He says, great show, gentlemen and mods. Mods did an awesome job. You guys are awesome. Hashtag DAExMods, Brock. You guys are fantastic. Thank you guys so much for everything you guys do. But check out all of my books over at DARoberts.net, or you can find me at DARoberts on Amazon. All of my books are currently available in print and in Kindle, and we're going to be working on getting more of the audios available. And we'll be discussing more of that as we unfold the plans. But appreciate each and every one of you guys so much. What's that, Rob?
Cajun just ordered mine and the Moon Valley and Uncanny Valley for yours. So
nice.
So
well, thank you, Cajun. Appreciate you, brother. Eric Testerman says, Robbie, I'm following your author's page.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Edie.
Definitely check it out. And if you guys aren't familiar with author pages on Amazon, you could put in my name or Ed Testerman's name or Robbie's name or any other author that you like. And if they've got books on Amazon, they will 9 times out of 10 have an author page. Some authors don't for some reason, but most of us have an author page. And you can go to that author page and there's a follow button. And if you click follow, you get notified immediately anytime one of these authors releases a new project. So I would definitely recommend that, especially if you want to stay informed as quickly as those books come out, because that follow button is a great way to get informed quickly. But again, folks, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Thank you for spending time with us, putting up with our shenanigans. But our shenanigans are fun. But
his shenanigans are cheeky and hurtful.
Oh, shenanigans. Sorry. No. Anyway. In my day, we made the rookie wear the codpiece, and we used blanks.
You're a sick man, Mac.
All right, we'll stop quoting movies. We'll start wrapping things up. But again, thank you guys for hanging out with us. And I hope we gave you something to think about tonight. Adaptive camouflage is a real thing, and it exists across the animal community. And to me, it's just far easier to believe that these creatures are naturally adapted at remaining hidden because they don't want to be found. Their survival depends on not being found, because when they start making themselves known, the little the shorter hairless Bigfoot shows up with the boomsticks, and then things start getting bad. So they've learned over successive generations that stealth is their best friend, and they are very good at it. But just hope that gives you guys something to think about the next time you hear an encounter story where somebody says it just disappeared right in front of my eyes. I'm not saying portals don't exist. I'm not saying that portals can't happen. I'm just saying that we're just wanting to give you something else to consider before you look at these more fantastic conclusions. So again, thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I want to mention the 22 a Day Foundation, because we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. So check on your friends and family that are veterans or active duty, whether they've been in the reserves, the National Guard, whatever capacity they served, or first responders as well, firefighters, EMTs, corrections officers, security officers, law enforcement officers. Excuse me, got the hiccups. But check on them. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care, because you never know that text, "Hey, are you okay?" might be what reminds them that people do care. And just folks, remember, don't let the hard days win, because at least 22 times a day they do. And let's get 22 a day down to 0. Cajun, thank you guys. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Appreciate that. But again, check on your friends and family and first responders, and let them know you care. Let them know you care, and let them know you're thinking about them. And we're gonna wrap this up with a toast. And since we were talking about Highlander, I was thinking about doing the Kurgan. I have something to say. Definitely not. So we're gonna do the quote from The Parting Glass, and just a fantastic old Irish drinking song, and it's very near and dear to my heart. Robbie, you want to toast us out?
Sure. You'll pop it up.
Yeah, he's up.
All right. But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Slanja.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAExMachiNation. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.